You guys are choosing your track day vehicles and track day toys wrong, and here's why. What's going on, my friends? So, a little bit of a different video today. We're not reviewing a car. I want to talk to you about track days, improving your driving technique and skills, and just enjoying cars overall. So, one thing I've noticed, I've only been tracking for a couple of years now, but one thing I've noticed is that when beginners come to the racetrack and they want to improve their driving skill, they want to get some of that excitement, that adrenaline, that rush of a good old-fashioned track day, I think they tend to use the wrong car. And what I mean by that is the default way that I see is most people will find the best, sportiest, fastest, most impressive sports car for their given budget. So let's say they have $70,000, maybe they'll get a Cayman, BMW M2, something like that. If they have $200,000, they'll get a GT3. They'll get some other really very capable vehicle that is probably overkill for a novice. And I actually think this is really detrimental to their driving skill. Now, at my previous track day, I got a lot of point buys from cars that were much, much, much faster. If you took the same driver, put them in both cars, that car would have been way faster. So this isn't to say like you shouldn't ever be overtaken by a quote slower car. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that I see a lot of ego at the racetrack, and it was very apparent at this last day for a couple reasons. So, number one of my buddies came by and said, "Hey Kevin, those Corvette drivers over there are like pissed at you." And I said, "Oh my God, like what did I do? I'm really sorry. You know, I take safety at the racetrack extremely seriously. I thought maybe I did an unsafe overtake or didn't see something or was being reckless." And he said, "Oh no, don't worry. They were just mad that your car was too fast, and they were asking how much horsepower you have under the hood." And you know, me and my other friend just started laughing because it's like, well, this car has headers and a tune, so it's really not much different from stock. It's more just the driver mod. And I thought it was a joke, but it looks like these drivers were actually a little bit irritated. There was another person there who was driving a Cayman GT4 and was mentioning how it was the car that was holding them back, the alignment was off, etc., etc. And what I tend to see at these events is a lot of like ego and a lot of like defending your skills as a driver versus coming at it through a lens of just humility and saying like, you know what, I have a lot to improve on and I don't really know what I'm doing, so here we go. That's why I'm here to learn and enjoy myself safely, obviously. So the issue with actually having too fast of a car is that the limits of that car are too high. So when you go to the racetrack in your GT3 or your GT4, and that's the first time you've ever taken a car on the racetrack, you're not able to get close to the car's limits because the car's limits are so high. To approach the limits of a GT3 on turn 1, you're going 110 miles an hour versus in a Miata, you're going maybe 80 miles an hour. And that delta, probably not even 80, let's say it's, I'm just throwing out random numbers. The point is, you're going much slower in a Miata or an FRS or something similar, where you can learn car control basics. You can learn, maybe I shouldn't say car control basics, because I feel like car control basics are actually done more so at autocross and lower speed, which is helpful. But when you first start going to the racetrack, it's very different than autocross. So a lot of the skills will translate, but it's still an elevated, more intense experience. So in a fast car, you're just not able to push it to the same limit because it's not safe. If you mess up, you're gonna crash, and you can't really learn how to manage the understeer and oversteer for that particular vehicle. And if that's your first vehicle, that means you don't know how to handle understeer and oversteer for any vehicle at all. So what I would actually suggest is, if you want to get involved with track days and you want to improve your driving technique, I think that's the most important thing. A lot of people get caught up with like lap times and, oh, I'm starting track days, I need to get one of these Garmin units or whatever and track my times each lap. Nah, man, you're at the novice level. You don't need to do any of that. You just need to focus on being consistent and learning the basics. And only later, once you have developed those skills, does it make sense to try to shave off tenths here and there. So I recommend starting with a slow car and driving it fast, something like a Miata or an FRS, BRZ, GR86, cars of that category, because you're going to be able to get to that limit much faster. And everyone has a different priority when they go to the racetrack. Perhaps someone just wants to take a really nice, fancy sports car, go around the track, have fun, and drive back home. And maybe they don't care about improving their driving technique. the reason I don't think that's the most common scenario is because if that was the situation, you wouldn't see so much posturing and ego at racetracks when, someone's car, if someone gets overtaken by someone who is in a slower car, there's a little bit of like, oh yeah, like my car was holding me back. It's like not dialed in right now. The tires are too cold. The PSI is like a lot of excuses when someone gets passed or they spin out or whatever it is. And it's a lot less about like, hey man, I'm in this journey of learning how to be a better driver. And I think if we can let go of our egos and just focus on that, we're all going to be a lot happier and have a lot more fun on the racetrack. And that's the goal, right? Have fun, improve your driving technique, have a good time. So anytime I go to a new racetrack, I always work with a driving coach the first time I'm there just to make sure that I'm not missing any important things like, hey, this part of the track is bumpy, like you should track out a little bit more over here, things like that. And at my first track day at Spring Mountain in Pahrump last November, my driving coach said that I'm not going to learn as much from my Scion FRS. He said I'm probably getting 95% out of the car right now. I think he was being generous. I think he was being a little bit kind. I think I'm probably getting 85% out of the car, not 95. But the point he was trying to make is that if my goal is to improve as a driver, now that I've done the basics, I've done a few years of autocross, I've done a couple years of track days, now I'm ready to move to a more powerful vehicle that can challenge me further and I can further develop my skill. So that is when I think it's appropriate to upgrade. But until that point, if I were to prematurely get a faster car, I would have been hindering my development. So I am approaching track days through the lens of like, how can I improve as fast as possible? And I'm actually going to see if I can become a driver coach myself. I have a lot to improve on in my own driving technique, and you need to have some level of expertise as a driver coach. So I don't think I'm quite there yet, but we'll see maybe after a couple more track days if I can get there. And I think that teaching others how to be better drivers, or actually in anything, right? Teaching others really reinforces your own understanding and your own expertise in that subject matter. Like when I was in med school and before starting plastic surgery residency, we did anatomy lab and we're teaching the first years. So we were doing the pro sections, we were doing and teaching, and that really solidified our understanding. The goal being that not only is it fun to teach, but when residency starts, okay, now we have much greater understanding and appreciation of anatomy, because not only did we do it as first years, but then we taught the first years once we were fourth years. So I want to take that same approach to my driving technique, because the goal of this channel and also just my love of cars is how can I enjoy the driving experience, become a better driver, get faster on the racetrack. That's my ultimate goal. And everyone has different priorities. Some people don't really care about that, and that's fine. But if you're watching this channel, you probably can relate to that. Anyways, that's it for my little rambly rant. And if you guys agree or disagree, please let me know with a comment down below. Much love, my friends, and I'll see you all in that next one.